Good morning. Today we are going to listen to Moses Shuuya. He's a doctoral student at NAST in Namibia, and he is working on productive use of energy in the context of off-grid electrification projects. Today, the official discussant unfortunately could not join us for a last-minute personal issue, so I'm going to provide to you with some developmental feedback based on your presentation. And I also welcome Sally and Harold, who are here listening to the presentation, to provide any question or feedback after your discussion. So you have 15 minutes for presenting your project, and then we can really continue with the discussion. Thank you, Moses. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alicia. Like I was introduced, my name is Moses Shuuya. I'm a PhD student here at NAST, obviously with funding from TUMSID. I'm going to present just a progress on my paper concept on productive use of energy. And I'm going to focus on how stakeholders probably collaborating to make sure that there's a productive use of energy implemented at solar mini grids in the global south. By the global south, I mean I will focus only on 2 countries, and I'm going to explain a bit later why. The motivation actually of this paper is based on the fact that literature has shown us that so many mini grids are constructed in the sub-Sahara Africa, especially also in the global south. But the majority of those mini grids, they don't achieve the intended impacts. They sometimes don't create income for the communities. Sometimes they are not sustainable. After maybe the funding has ceased from the donors, the mini grids also cease to function. But on the other hand, literature also has shown us that productive use of electricity or productive use of energy is somehow attributed to increasing electricity demand at mini grids, therefore sometimes enabling income generation, because it necessitates these communities to start entrepreneurial activities. So looking at that link between the failing mini grids and the use of productive, or the impact of productive use of energy on this mini grid, I was motivated to understand from the perspective of those few successful mini grids, to understand what are those practices, these stakeholders who are involved in these solar mini grids, what are the best practices they are actually using to make some of these few mini grids work. So how are they facilitating? How are they collaborating to facilitate productive use of energy at these mini grids to ensure that there's some community and entrepreneurial development? So that's my motivation, to make sure that at least we make a contribution with this paper, to make sure that mini grids are sustainable, they are income generating, and they are having impact on social aspects in these communities. So that is actually the motivation. The research gave of the focus of previous studies, either focus maybe on productive use of electricity as an impact of economical and social impact, productive use of electricity, impact on sustainability of mini grids, types of productive uses of electricity, challenges facing productive use of electricity implementation, and stakeholders who might be involved in promotion and implementation of productive use of energy. So the existing literature has covered most of that, but there lacks kind of academic literature on the best practices of promoting and facilitating productive use based on empirical evidence. So therefore, this kind of a lack of evidence-based framework for promoting and implementing productive use of electricity. And this is the gap this paper is trying to address, to get some empirical evidence on the best practices that are used by those successful communities where they are using electricity for productive use for community impacts, to generate income and also to better their social aspects like living conditions and so on. So that is the gap that this paper is trying to address. So the research questions, what that we want to answer with this paper is that what successful practices are used to promote and facilitate productive use of energy or electricity at solar energy projects targeting rural communities? And with answers to this question, maybe we can then also answer the question as to what framework can be derived from these successful practices that we can use as a guideline for those mini-grids that are in the failing process and maybe those that are to be developed. What framework probably can be followed to make sure that the promotion and implementation of productive use of electricity is implemented successfully at those mini-grids? So these are the two research questions that we are trying to answer through this paper. The methodology, the paper is using, I made a mistake there, not quantitative, but it's using a qualitative methodology, focusing on multiple case studies as a research design. And I've selected some communities where there are solar mini-grids, and at these communities, they have successfully implemented some productive use of electricity projects. And these are two communities from Namibia. And the first one is called Tsunkwe. It's a community, it's a settlement in the Osonjonjupa area region in Namibia. And there are a lot of productive use of energy activities there, ranging from small retailer businesses. There are also some different types of public offices, like a constituents councillor's office, police station, courts, schools, also regional council that manages the settlement. There's also a community garden, there's a fuel station, and there are two schools, one primary and one secondary schools, of which they are all connected to this mini-grid. The other community is Gam. It's 100 kilometers away from Tsunkwe. But this one is characterized by mostly small retailer businesses and the public office, which is a constituency councillor's office. Then there are also some community in Zambia. This I did not visit yet, but I communicated with somebody who is working closely with these mini-grids to look for guidance. What could be the suitable communities for this research? And he recommended these three communities in Zambia. One of them is Shitandika in Shipangali district, Eastern Province in Zambia. They have quite a lot of productive use of energy or electricity projects there, which includes irrigation, concrete block making, hammer mill, dehull and groundnut decotating. The third community or second community in Zambia is Shuuya. It's in Sinda district, Eastern Province, also in Zambia. They are also involved in irrigation, but they also have a telecommunication tower that is feeding from the mini grid. They also have some oil expeller project and a hammer mill. There's also a third community in Zambia, which is Kandongwa in Petuke district, Eastern Province, Zambia as well. They are also involved in irrigation, hammer mill, tihala, and oil expel. So these are the communities that I'm looking forward to also do a site visit and also interview the communities and different stakeholders that are involved in the promotion of productive use of energy projects there. Continuing with probably why I chose these communities, they kind of have something in common. They all have mini grids that are not private funded. They are also quite a distance from the cities, which put them under a main category of communities that maybe don't have good infrastructures. That was also quoted in the literature as one of the challenges to set up these solar mini grids and make sure that productive use of electricity activities take place. So because of the similarity, I choose to go with those communities. To continue with the methodology, how do we expect to collect data? Obviously, we'll be interviewing members of the community and other stakeholders who are involved in setting up this productive use of electricity projects. Whether there are those stakeholders who funded these activities or who maybe provided some skills or whatever involvement, because we are trying to see how are they collaborating with one another. Are they collaborating? Are they competing? And which best practices are they using to encourage this community to come up with this productive use of energy? The data analysis, we are planning to use a hybrid coding approach where we will be using a deductive coding. And this coding we will derive from the literature, especially looking at the challenges that were raised by the existing literature, the challenges of having this productive use of electricity in these communities, challenges like access to finance, access to equipment, maybe lack of skills, lack of infrastructure, and so on. We will predetermine these codes to see how those projects are dealing with these challenges. What practices are they using to deal with these challenges to ensure that there's a successful implementation of productive use of electricity projects in these communities. And obviously not to overlook at the new insights that might not be picked up by these codes. We will also then use the inductive coding to come up with new codes from the insights that might not fall under the predetermined codes that we will start with when we start with the interviews. And those codes will be based on, like I said, on the challenges that are raised in the literature as challenges associated with lack of productive use of electricity activities in these communities. And obviously, by having these codes, we will be able to pick up what practices these communities or these stakeholders used to overcome these problems. And in the end, we will have these best practices that they have used, and develop them into a framework that can guide other solar mini grids to promote and implement productive use of energy projects or activities in their communities. I traveled to Tsunkwe and Gam, and I spoke to some entrepreneurs there, and also to some stakeholders like the office of the constituency councillors there, the regional councillor, senior administrative officer, who is responsible for managing the settlement. And these are some of the insights that I have picked up. For example, the regional councillor's office indicated that they are trying to promote productive use of electricity by making it interesting for people to come and settle in the settlement, and also to make it easier for people to get access to land and start a business there. As he indicated that the community has grown from the time this mini grid was commissioned or was opened. The community has increased in terms of population. Also, the number of businesses have also increased. Unfortunately, I was expecting from, he informed me that the data that he currently had by the time I got there was not up to date. He promised to send me the updated data, but he didn't yet. Probably he will still send it, but he indicated that the businesses in the community are increasing because of this access to electricity. But for them, they are trying to attract people from different communities to come and set up the business in their community by making sure that access to residential and business aerovents or plots is affordable. Like you can see, they charge per square meter like a 5 cent per square meter for a residential plot, and they charge for a 10 cent for a business aerovent plot. He showed me the map, and he indicated that there are still some plots that have to be allocated, and when they are allocated, they will consult with the regional office to make sure that they expand the settlement. But there was quite a negative attitude toward the mini grid power supply, as sometimes it becomes unreliable, even though it's backed up by a diesel generator. They feel it's betraying them because now that they have that renewable energy, the government is quite reluctant to invest in the national grid to the community, because it's about 150 kilometers away from the national grid. And they are estimating about 40 million Namibian dollars to connect the community to the grid. So, but they complain about the appliances burning because electricity always goes off and on. The entrepreneurs in the community also shared the same sentiments, that the fact that the plots are quite affordable, and also to pay monthly rates and taxes, it's affordable. It lifts a burden of costs from their businesses, making it easier for them at least to sustain their businesses, because then they have only to focus on paying their employees and investing in expanding their businesses. So one of the insights that I also picked up is the value chain. Most of the shops of the mini markets in this community, they go and get their supplies or their stock from Oshikango. Oshikango is a Namibian town bordering Angola, and they sometimes go in Angola to go buy their stock there, even though it's quite far. It's about 700 kilometers, but they still feel that's the only way they can make an income, because they spend less buying stock than going to buy maybe stock in Windhoek or in a nearby town, which is about 250 and 60 kilometers away that also don't have affordable suppliers for their shops. So that is one of the insight I picked up there, which means if these people did not have these cheaper suppliers from Angola, they will be struggling to make a profit in the community there. So the other insight I also picked up is that financial institutions like banks, they don't want to go and bring services to the community because of unreliable renewable energy that goes off and on and off sometimes. And also they cited less population, that they might not break even with the population of the settlement. So that's why you can see they need a collaboration between the regional councillor to grow the community so that the banks can bring their services there. Entrepreneurs also cited the importance of government social grant as a critical factor in the sustainability of their businesses because it provides purchasing power to the community to support their businesses. Unfortunately, 2 weeks after I left Tsungwe, I read a report that they are kind of also abusing the community there, especially the old people who get this social grant. They are kind of putting them in debt because they allow them to take things on credit. And when they are getting this allowance, it's all sucked up by these businesses, of which I think the regional councillor's office warned them to desist from that kind of business habits. The entrepreneurs also cited availability of public offices like schools, police, courts, and other NGOs employees who also brings purchasing power to the community, and they are able to support their businesses because at least they earn an income. But the entrepreneurs also cited that the lack of public transport availability from this settlement to the nearby town, which is about 260 kilometers away, the fact that there is no public transport all the time, this also contributes to their businesses being successful, because now the community members are forced to support local businesses. But even though the communities feel they need a tie road so they can also go to the other towns, it works in the benefits of the small businesses in the community, because it keeps the money circulating in the community. So those are some of the insights I got when I interviewed the communities and the constituency councillor and the regional councillor's office. What the constituency councillor is doing also to promote productive use of electricity, they have set up a community garden where they will ask the community to come and work and remunerated based on the amount of work they do there. Maybe they give them some work to do and they compensate them for that work they have done. They don't necessarily employ them full-time, but when there's a job to be done, they call the community, they do the job and they get paid. And this community garden also not only supply the community with food, when they harvest, they also supply to GAM, which is 100 kilometers away, which means they are boosting also the value chain for the business community, for the businesses in GAM, because they supply them with a fresh produce from their gardens. Just to probably to conclude, I just have some pictures of the community. This is Tsungwe. As you can see there, this is a service station there, and you have some shops. These are the stock they get from Angola. They have to go there because maybe because of the exchange rate between the Namibian dollars and the Angolan kwanzas. Things become cheaper there in Angola, and even though they have to pay quite a lot of money for transport, they still said they are still profitable when they when they get stock from Angola. This is the mini grid there. Actually, this one is the mini grid for Tsunkwe, and you can see some schools there. This is the court. It's a public institution, and there are many mini markets as well that are connected to this grid. You can really see there's a lot of productive use of electricity activities taking place in this community. So that is the end of my presentation. Maybe we can discuss, and the questions are welcome.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really enjoyed it. First of all, I want to congratulate you because I know your journey in identifying a research topic, and I think that you have now found a direction or something that also looks seems that you are excited about, and also seems very relevant to me. So I really like the topic, and I think you've been doing great work. So while you were talking, I noted down some comments or questions, maybe suggestions. I'm sorry, maybe they don't have a very clear structure because I really just found right now as you were talking. So I hope, that I can create kind of a coherent feedback and discussion. Yeah. So, and yeah, I also noted some questions that then you kind of replied during the presentation. So let's see how this goes, but okay. But the first question that I had when you started to present your project, your concept paper, as you call it, is about what type of mini grids are we talking about? And then you said they are not private mini grids. So what are they? Are they public mini grid? Are they donor or community-based mini grid? So that's kind of important to clarify at the very beginning to frame your study in a specific conversation. And yeah, so this is, let's say, the first question for you. So what type of mini grids are they? Are they public or are they community-based mini grids?
The Tsunkwe and GAM, they are managed by our national utility, which is Sinored. Sinored is a electricity distribution in Namibia is actually we have the top, which is Nampower, that is responsible for the whole country. And then there are the REDs, the regional distribution agencies. For them, the mini grid obviously was funded by the donors, but it was transferred to Zenored to manage the mini grid. They are the ones responsible for if somebody wants to apply for electrical meter to get connected to the grid, they have to go through their office. But obviously, they also the ones who apply for the rates. If they maybe want to increase the rates, there's a central electricity central board who decides on the rates of the mini grids. So that's also the same with GAM. All these are managed by the Sinored, but it's the Sinored is a public institution, so they are not necessarily managed by the communities. The ones in Zambia, I still have to find out who financed these mini grids. So this one I will have to find out when I get to Zambia and have some interviews.
Yeah, because I think it's quite important in the research design to make a decision about it. Like your research question is about best practices for enabling productive use of energy, the successful productive use of energy. and if I understood correctly, while you were presenting, you want to understand specifically what type of what are the best practices in relation to how different stakeholders can collaborate, right? That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so I think it's important that you because you have this question that is very nice, very specific. Would be important that you decide, do I want to, for example, compare how this works in the 3 different types of mini-grids? So my sample is formed by some public managed, some community managed, and some private managed mini-grid. Or do I only want to do this study in the specific context of public mini-grids? And then you just have different public mini-grids, and you see how different stakeholders collaborate successfully within that technology. My suggestion, like personally, I think it's easier to compare if you have an homogeneous type of mini-grid, which could be, for example, a public mini-grid. So the mini-grid is owned and managed by the public authority, but they have collaboration with communities and have collaboration with the private sector. I think, but at least you clarify, I'm looking at for this specific type of mini-grid, because otherwise, if you put together different types, then it's difficult to create the framework that you want to create, because it's going to be too large and too broad, and no one can actually use it. So yeah, my suggestion would be decide what model of mini-grids you want to look at.
If I decide public, they must all be public.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Then
you.
in your interviews, you can, for example, interview private companies that work with the government. And here is where you study the collaboration and the relationship between the stakeholders. But at least you're saying this is true for public managed mini-grids. If you go to the private sector, my framework doesn't work, which is better than trying to create a framework that works for everyone, because it's simply unrealistic, right? Because they have different, for sure, they have different situations and different goals, objectives, and whatever.
I have taken note of initially I wanted to compare, then my fear was not even the angle you are giving me now. My fear was that in Namibia, we already don't have a private mini-grid that is serving a community. You find a private mini-grid is only connected to the mini-grid. It's only giving extra electricity to the national utility, but not necessarily connecting houses and stuff like that. That's why I decided, okay, let me just focus on public community-based mini-grids. But I see now, I have now to see now who is responsible for the mini-grid. Is the public itself, or is it managed by a public office? Maybe I also have to go and redefine my case studies.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Then you want to understand stakeholders, collaboration. So it would be very important to have very clear who are the stakeholders in the different case studies that you have. So my second suggestion would be once you have identified the 3 to 5 cases that you plan to compare, then because your interest is in the stakeholder collaboration, the first thing that you should do is like a stakeholder map, or who is involved in for what concerns the productive use of energy, and how do they work together. So just like a stakeholder map, one for each of the sites. Okay. And something that I would also put some emphasis on is your unit of analysis and unit of observation. So you should very well make explicit in your research question that your unit of analysis is the stakeholder collaboration, if this is what you want to look at. So you just say, I want to understand what are the best practices about how different stakeholders collaborate together to make productive use of energy successful. And your unit of observation should be, as you also mentioned, should be what are the practices that they do, that they put in place to respond to the well-known challenges that we already know from the literature. Because one of the points that you mentioned is that we know that there are some specific challenges connected to making productive use of energy work. And now your unit of observation is the practices that these stakeholder networks or the stakeholders do to respond to these challenges. So this is your unit of observation.
Thank you, Doctor.
Then something that some reflection that I would suggest you to do. The first one is that mini-grid projects are usually very difficult to compare one with another because they are all grounded in different situations, different environments. They have very specific challenges. So how are you going to overcome this challenge and make sure that you can make them comparable? I don't have an answer now, but this is something that you should be able to explain in your paper. And something else that it's again like food for future reflection is how do you define if a community is successfully implementing productive use of energy? What are indicators that this is a successful case? Is it about only the presence of productive use of energy? It's just because they are doing something, is that automatically, does that automatically mean that this is a successful case? So I think you just need to make that explicit.
That's a very important point, Doctor.
Yeah, and also a little bit again about the definitions. Another definition that is important that you make in your paper, usually in the introduction of your paper, is what you mean by productive use of energy. Because as you for sure know, there are so many different interpretations and meanings. So in every paper, we need to clarify and give the specific definition of the most important concepts for our study. So for sure you need to say, okay, this is what productive use of energy means for me. And hopefully this was going to a little bit help with the question that I had before about how do we define successful productive use of energy. Then I really like the fact that you're using the qualitative methodology because qualitative and multiple qualitative methods are perfect for comparing. And this is what you seems to be willing to do. So compare different cases and see what we can learn from the most successful ones. That's definitely correct. And yeah, as I mentioned already, the most important aspect of multiple case studies is identifying the case studies. So that is what makes the study well framed, or well thought. So again, I gave you a suggestion, just focus on one type of mini-grid, like the public one, and see how the stakeholder work differently. But I think you should also go a little bit, do another step when identifying your cases. So you need to, if you narrow it down to public mini-grids only, then your 3 to 5 cases should represent maybe some specific type of collaboration that you want to study. Then I don't know what that exactly means because I'm not in the literature, but I guess if you want to, to learn some lessons from stakeholders collaboration, you probably want to compare at least 2 different types of collaboration. And what these types of collaboration are, I don't know. Like maybe I'm just guessing. Maybe in one case you are comparing very strong networks, very centralized network with few partners. And on the other end, you're instead comparing decentralized networks with a lot of different partners. And then you're saying, okay, if you're a public mini-grid owner, you could have these two types of way to work with your stakeholders. Let's analyze them. Let's see how they do what they do, how do they respond to the challenges differently, and where are you still there, Moses?
Yes. One of the devices went off.
Okay, no problem. So you should maybe define the cases also based on what are different types of collaboration that you find there. Yeah. Then you talked about hybrid coding, which I think is very good because, as you said, we do have some literature about this topic, but we are missing a piece. So for what we know, we use the deductive, and for what we don't know, we use the inductive. I think that looks very good. Yeah, last but not least, no, not last, but last about data or methodology. I think it would be very helpful if you could present or prepare and present a table just describing how many interviews did you conduct so far, who did you talk to, how long the interview was, few information about the respondents. Yeah, just organize this in a table so that it's also clearer for someone who is reading your work to understand a little bit better, and also for you to analyze and to draw your insights.
I actually asked the team to help me with the paper to benchmark. So she had a good.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and about your insight, I found that very, very helpful. Really interesting, everything about the land, the practices that they're doing to attract people, and how this is connected to creating more markets, even for banks. I mean, that's really, really good stuff for the first few interviews. The value chain part, the idea of a common garden, those are all very interesting practices that we have found. And yeah, so my suggestion is just now maybe you can start to be a little bit more systematic in the analysis and just start doing some initial coding so that you can present these insights in a more organized way. But overall, I think that's really a very good starting point for just one case and for just the interviews that you've done. It's really and how can I say, like, counterintuitive or non-obvious insights that you are bringing in. So I'm really impressed.
Thank you, Dr. Alicia, for the feedback and also for the input you gave. They're really helpful, and will just help me to shape this paper.
Great. I hope that's going to be helpful. And yeah, I hope to read your paper again, and I'm very happy to provide other feedback when you want. And I think maybe Sally, Harold, if you have any comments or feedback for Moses, then we still have a couple of minutes to take them.
Okay. Hi, Alicia. Hi, Moses. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Sally. Fine. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. I just have maybe like two questions or points of concern. But first, I'd like to say congratulations on how far your paper has come. I know how much you've really tried to get a basing on this. So this is really good work. I think the first thing I noticed is, as you're reading context-wise, of successful solar mini grids. But when you look at the topic, it talks about stakeholder relationships or collaborations. So I was thinking maybe you can gear the topic in a way that marries well with the context. Because we're not talking about best practices in the topic. You're just talking about stakeholder collaborations, but the background of the paper is talking about the best practices of successful solar mini grids. So I'm thinking there's a better way, like you can merge it so that it can come out better in the topic. Then also maybe in your literature review, you can talk about why are stakeholder collaboration standing out compared to other practices. Then maybe my last point is to say, if I've heard you correctly, you are saying you still haven't collected data from Zambia, right?
Yes.
Yes, I think it would also be good to, when you get the data, it would be good to compare with Nsuku, what already you have, to see if the situation is the same as what you've collected so far. Yes, but that's what I'd say so far, but it's a really good paper.
Thank you, Sally.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sally. I really like your comments, especially the one about the topic framing and about stakeholder collaboration that should come out more strongly. And yeah. Harold, do you have any comments or questions for Moses?
Not really. Hi, Alicia, Moses,
Hi.
and Sally. Not really. I think you have addressed comprehensively some of the areas that probably Moses would need to kind of consider. And I think also when I look at what he has presented, it still looks like it's quite early in his process of developing the paper. So at this point, I wouldn't really put any additional comments. But thank you, Moses, for the presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Harold. Yeah, I agree. It's a very early stage, and we gave you a lot of things to reflect upon. Yeah, so I think we can close the session for today. And thank you again, Moses, and congratulations for your progress. We look forward to see how this move on. And thank you once again for joining us today, Sally and Harold.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.